Welcome back to another episode of the Brilliant Resilient Experience. This episode is brought to you by Eichling Med Spa, the ultimate destination for those pursuing peak performance and optimal health and wellness. Eichling Med Spa offers popular services including light stim, red light therapy, vitamin injections, functional health assessments, custom IV therapy, rejuvenating facials, dermaplane, and much more. Whether you are an athlete looking to improve performance and recovery, or someone who just wants to improve their overall health and well-being, Eichling Med Spa has a solution for you. I've been a proud customer of Eichling Med Spa for over a year, and it's so much more than just your average med spa. It's been absolutely vital to my overall health and wellness, and has completely leveled up my performance as well. Visit www.eichlingmedspa.com and book your appointment today. Make sure to tell them that Bree sent you to receive 20% off of your first IV therapy. Located in New Melle, Missouri, Eichling Med Spa is your one-stop shop for your health and wellness needs. Today we have a very special guest. Usually he's on the other side of the mic, but today we're going to put him in the hot seat, and I cannot wait to learn more about him and learn about his story and his background. You might recognize him from the Nemesis Fighting Alliance red carpet show and his many interviews with local fighters in the St. Louis combat sports scene. So let's go ahead and bring on Danny Wright. Danny, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well today. How are you, Brianna?
I'm good. Still kind of feeling the buzz in the air from the fights on Friday. It was fun.
What an amazing night. The venue was fantastic. Nemesis put on another spectacular show. The fights were awesome. Everything about it was great.
It was fantastic. I mean, that was the first time they'd done the fights at the Armory. That's the first time I think they've probably ever done fights at the Armory.
It is the first live event at the Armory STL.
Yeah, that was awesome. That venue was crazy. What did you think about it?
I thought it was I hate to say this because I love Ballpark Village. The name alone is like fantastic. It's where the Cardinals play. It's the home of the Cardinals. But the Armory is the best place I've ever seen fights at, and ever. It was spectacular. I did make a joke to them that they needed to get a bigger cage because the place was so spacious.
Yes.
Wow. And the atmosphere they filled it up really nicely too. Like, they did a really good job. The fans came out. It was a spectacular night for sure.
Yeah, it was really cool the way it was set up too, because they had like multiple bars and it was kind of just like a big open area. So you could watch the fights and then you hop over to the bar, but you can still see what's going on. You know, unlike sometimes you go to fights and you go grab a drink and you miss half the action because you're...
And every TV that you walked around, the fights were on. But they had that big screen in the back that was where the fighters walked out. I don't even know what the size of it was, but it was huge.
Oh, yeah, that was awesome.
Huge.
It was huge. Yeah, I think that was one thing that I really liked too, was just the fact that you could see the fights from pretty much everywhere. Even like in the upstairs area, which was really cool. And then like downstairs, even from the bar, you could kind of see the cage. And if you couldn't, then they had the TV up right there. So yeah, that was awesome. And I feel like the whole energy felt a little different too, which I liked. It was just a different vibe. I liked it.
You've seen the fights at Ballpark Village, haven't you?
Yeah, I went to the last one.
The very first one they had there, it gave me the excitement of wanting to fight again. Like I walked in there and like people were just hanging from the balconies, the rafters. It was so close. Is what everything. I love that. I think it still had that same atmosphere. Like, it was so energetic and like the people were. It was a great event and a great place to have the fights at. And it was more spacious. Like, you weren't walking into anybody. You didn't have to squeeze to get through, like to walk by the cage. You weren't even allowed to get next to the cage. They had it all barricaded off. Like, this was a big fight feel. Like the UFC when they come to like the UFC fight nights or whatever. That's the type of vibe I got from it. It was a spectacular place to watch the fights for sure.
Oh, yeah. And I bet you there were probably a lot of people there that had never been to an MMA fight before because of that venue. I think that probably drew a lot of people.
They'll probably take that for granted. I know some of those fighters will take it for granted. That this is the avenue and the place that they got to fight at, the venue. Second,
it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great night.
So you said you used to fight?
I once upon a time, a long time ago. Yeah,
Nice.
I fought. I was independent when I was sitting around watching fights with my buddy Ray Norris, who owns Wise Warrior MMA or runs Wise Warrior MMA, and we watched the UFC events together all the time. And things got to chirping one night or whatever. We was like, well, why don't we do this? And we got in shape, went out and fought. It was
That's
a good time. It
awesome.
was at Our Bosky's. Used to have the fights at Our Bosky's, which is all tore down now. That's how long ago it was. It was 2010, April. Yeah, April of 2010.
Okay.
It was a lot of fun. And then Steve Berger asked after the fight, told me to come be a student at his gym. That what he had, what I didn't have, he could teach, and what I had, he couldn't teach. So I went there and trained for I don't know. Trained there for 3 or 4 years. It was a lot of fun, man. I do miss it. I wish that I got everything out of it that I wanted to, though. Like
Yeah.
I worked a lot and I traveled, so I fought in 6 week increments and trained and stuff like that. I had to be on the road for 2 3 months most of the time, and then I would come back and I'm not a martial artist like Ray Norris is or a lot of these guys that run gyms. Eric, your coach, your coach. These guys are martial artists. I was a
Yeah.
fighter. I enjoyed the Friday Saturday night thing. The training was whatever. It was if I had to do that to get to Friday and Saturday, I would. But it wasn't. I didn't. I'm not GSP. I just like to throw some leather and get. I don't mind getting hit. So
Yeah.
that's what. Yeah, I got out of what I wanted to. I enjoyed it. I met a lot of great people. It changed the trajectory of my life for sure. Man, I'm so grateful for the times I had in it. I'm grateful that I moved on from it and doing other things now. It was a lot of fun.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, well, I'll ask you. So you've obviously done a lot of interviews and you've done some media stuff, which is really cool. You do a lot of work with Nemesis, which is awesome. Do you think that your experience competing and fighting has helped you with doing that?
I mean, I guess, yeah. I mean, I know when I'm watching, and I think fighters know that when we talk, that they know, they know that I fought before, that they see my background, so they're a little more trusting, or they know that what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, I'm just not talking out of my ass. But I don't think that you necessarily, you don't have to be a fighter
Right.
to do to do interviews or to talk about fighting. We all
Yeah.
watch it. I mean, you watch it over enough time, you can see what's going on and how to fit. And you may even if you can't do it, like there's stuff in jiu-jitsu that I watch in that when Ray Hayes had the arm triangle in. I was like
Yeah.
left hip down, and I'm talking to the people in front of me, and they're trying to tell me what he shouldn't or shouldn't do, and I'm like, as soon as he puts his left hip down, it's over. I probably can't do that to a whole lot of people, that submission, and like actually do the steps to get the submission.
Yeah.
But I knew once Ray Hayes had and as soon as Ray Hayes put his left hip down, the dude tapped. Like you can
Yeah.
get that from even though I've been in a gym and I've done the arm triangle, I've had it done to me. I don't know if
Yeah.
now I could ever get if I could get somebody in that that's not a kid because I don't
Right.
roll. I don't roll. I haven't rolled in a long time, so I don't. I'm not still doing that. But I know the steps that he has to do, and you could learn that just by watching, repeat by watching it, and you can articulate it to somebody else.
That's a good point. Yeah, I agree. I don't think you have to do it. I think it does help you understand a few things more when at least training for me, because I've never fought before, but since I've trained and since I've experienced like being punched in the face, like it gives me a different understanding not only of what's going on in the octagon, but also what's going on in their head, like when I'm doing interviews. So it's a little more, I feel like it's not, and I don't know that it makes me any better at interviewing, maybe it doesn't, but it does kind of feel like, I don't know, I'm just able to really understand their frame of mind a lot better, I feel like.
The only thing that I think that fighting that helps relate more is those nerves and the emotions you go through when you're the preparation, the week of, and walk
Yeah.
into that cage. What your thought process is, and how fighters like they you would see them like you watch them on TV or you watch them live, and you would think that they're the most confident individuals in the world, and it's actually the opposite of that.
Yeah.
They're the most thin-skinned people that you'll ever meet. But here's what I love and respect the most about them. when they have that fear and they're those moments of doubt, self doubt, and they're scared to embarrass themselves or to get their ass whooped or whatever, they still just go and do it. That's
Right.
if that's not a piece of life advice or a thing that you carry on to life, I don't know what else is. Even if you're scared, just go do it.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's why I have so much respect for fighters too, because they're not afraid to fail publicly and fail really bad, you know?
But see, I
Cuz it
think
can
that they
be
are
really
afraid.
bad.
I think they are afraid, but they still do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
They,
that's
they,
a good point. They're afraid, but they're like, well, you know what? What if I don't? What if
yeah.
I win?
What if I've trained? What if I've trained and done all the things I'm supposed to, and put the work in and the effort and the time and the energy into this, and the risk is worth the reward. Is how I
Yes.
believe a lot of them look at it. At least that's how I look at it.
Yes.
I was willing to go get beat up to whoop somebody's ass
Yeah.
for lack of a and it's not because people congratulate you or think of you or whatever, but it's because just the thrill of competing. Like
Oh yeah.
I love to compete at anything. If we're rolling tires down the street, I want to win. It just so happens this is a fight. That's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I feel like competition is something that can really help you grow as a person too, in a lot of ways. And especially fighting because it's so individual. And there's so, like, especially in MMA, and we were kind of just talking about this off air, but there's so many ways to lose in MMA, but there's also, so many ways to win. And it's such a complex sport that, yeah, I mean, to be willing to go in there and do that takes some serious cojones for sure.
For some people, it does. I mean, for other people, it's just like what you do. The
Yeah.
humbleness, the humbleness that comes with fighting, though. Like
Oh my God. Yeah.
you can think that you're the whatever you are, and then you go into a gym and you get ragdolled by a guy 30, 60 pounds less than you, because that was one of the greatest things for me. It was like learning to be humble and because you can't learn if you're just the most arrogant guy in the room. He knows everything, so he's not able to
Exactly.
learn anything. MMA will check that real quick.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's not something that you can really fake for very long. Like, I mean, you see guys sometimes that have like a padded record and they'll do really well in MMA and then all of a sudden they just start losing, and it's because they get exposed because, like we're kind of saying, I mean, yeah, it's a sport that will humble you, and I feel like that's a good thing too, and especially with training, that's something that it's really done for me is like, and it sucks sometimes because I'll go into training and I'll feel like, man, I wish I could just get good at this. But at the same time, it's good because it does keep me humble, and you can always get better. It doesn't matter if you are freaking, I don't know, like if you've been boxing for 10 years or if you've been doing MMA for 20 years, there's still more. Like, you can never really completely master every single area of martial arts.
I don't even think you can master one area of it because it's always evolving. It's always growing. Like the
Yes.
stuff that they're doing in the cage now, like the guys that are 1-0 or 1-1 are so much better than the guys 10 years ago. Like what they know and
Yes.
their ability to perform in the cage, but they're just not as like the guys 10 years ago because they didn't know. They were just like, let's do this. I think so. I think there was less trepidations because people weren't like you thought you were the baddest person that you knew. So you were more willing to go
Yeah.
out there and do that as opposed to the guy who's been rolling since he was 13 years old or 10 years old. And so he's been ragdolled a few times. So he already understands what can happen to him a little better or what
Mm-hmm.
can happen to him a little better. So I think that they're less apt to put themselves out there. Guys are like
Yeah.
trying to be precise and perfect now, whereas that's not you have you have to have setbacks. Life
Yeah.
is about losing and overcoming those losses and learning from them and growing. It's that's why, man, it's the greatest sport in the world because
Oh
it
yeah.
will teach you so much about who you are as an individual, and all the people and the people around you too. You said it's an individualistic sport. It is, but it's the most team oriented, individualistic thing you can ever do. Because the night that you fight, or the night that you go to the jiu-jitsu tournament, or to the K1 whatever spot, whatever it is, all these people helped you get there. All your training partners, your coaches who taught you, your family who watched your kids or gave you rides, or your sponsors. It took so many people and so many things to get you to this moment. That's
Right.
that's cool as shit.
Oh yeah. It really is cool to see. And it's cool to see like the rise of a fighter too. That's something that really fascinates me, and I think that's why I love interviewing local fighters and amateur fighters so much, because you can kind of see their rise in their career. And of course, not all of them are going to make it. Some of them will find, maybe they make more money doing something else or whatever. It's something happens, their priorities change. But I do think it's really cool to see somebody go from, being an amateur fighter, and then you see them get, okay, well, now they're getting a bigger fight. Now they're going pro. Like, it's really cool to see the progression in their careers. And you never know who's going to make it sometimes. And you never know. I mean, man, I look at some of these amateur fighters and they almost look like they're pro already. It's kind of crazy, just the level that they're training at, and the skills that they're able to acquire in such a short period of time.
I think let's rewind it a little bit. My first fight, Jay Collier fought, and he got subbed by one of my teammates in like 39 seconds or 59 seconds. Blake Chatham was his name. At the time, we weren't teammates. We became teammates. But I started going to Burgers like two weeks after my fight. And Jay Collier shows up. Pat Smith showed up with Jay Collier and Dakota Bush. And Jake's like, show me how you did that. Let's walk through it. You could see Jake Collier then was going to go, because we were close to the same weight class. I think I fought at 205 at the time. He fought at 185. So we had rounds and rolls and stuff like that. And his ability, he was already exceptional with his skill set, and his power was crazy. But his ability to, okay, teach me how you did that. I want to come learn. I want to come, like his grinding and just nonstop grinding. Dakota was the same way, man. These guys just, you could tell early on that there was no sky, there was no limit to their ceiling, because they were egotistical. They were egotistical less, or whatever the word is. They didn't have an ego. They were willing to put themselves out there and learn from the guy who just subbed them. I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought then some guys you could tell then. I think now it's a little harder to tell, because everybody's got a skill set, but it's your mentality will change whether you make it to a pro or not. Because a lot of people are skilled, but who's going to grind? Like Dakota's the prime example. Like that dude's just a straight grinder, man.
Yeah.
And he's always adding to his tool set.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing too. I think that we've gotten to the point in MMA, even like I said, even on an amateur level, where the skills are pretty much there. It's hard to find a matchup where, you're like, oh, this guy's completely way more skilled than this guy. It's hard to say at this point. I feel like it's the small things now. Like it's the mindset, like you said, it's the work ethic, it's the discipline. It's, kind of really to the ability not to allow outside distractions, also to influence your career. I feel like that's a huge thing too. But it's all those intangible things I feel like that play more of a factor now, especially when, this main event this weekend, Dakota Bush versus Jeremiah Scott, that's a high level fight. They're both very, very skilled in a lot of different areas. So, you look at that fight and you're like, how do I even predict this? Like, I don't even know, because it's so high level. So it's like, yeah, it's going to come down to, who's the most prepared, who wants it the most, who has the best mindset, who is, like you said, hungry to learn and consistently improving. And I think that is one thing that I kind of see with Dakota. He seems like someone who is very hungry to improve. Even though he's been in the UFC, he's been at the top level of competition in this sport, but he's still trying to get better. He moves down to Florida for his fight camp and trains with Grant Dawson, who's probably, in my opinion, I would say top 3 grapplers in the UFC in that division. You could even say probably top 1 or 2. So he's going down and training with people like that. That tells me that he's like, his mindset's got to be on a whole nother level.
Those are the guys that you'll see. It's the exposure to different styles and different match. Like when you go to, I'm not like, I don't know how to say this without trying to. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I dislike when people bounce around gym, like when they leave their gyms or their coaches, because like these are the people like you click with these guys. That's who helped you get there. But you do need to go and cross train. I think Wolves Den is doing it really well now, where they're actually inviting people. Like 10 years ago, that wasn't the case. There was no cross training. It was like gangs and shit. Like this is my turf. We're not doing that. You're not coming here. We're gonna whoop that ass or whatever. But these guys who get to like who are going to all these other gyms and they're getting the exposure and they see all these different styles and how this. So it's not new to you when you get to these bigger stages. Like you've seen a karate guy before. You've seen a boxer before who also grapples, like or a grappler who also has some stand up. That's where I think, and Dakota, they're the Smith gyms. The first Pat Smith and them are the first people that I remember doing that. And I'm sure that they weren't the first, but they were the first guys I remember that would go all around and get different looks with different people. Dakota and Jake Collier. And where are they at right now? Or where have they go? They're going to, like they both have been in the UFC. Dakota's hopefully going back to the UFC, and I think that's a testament to all the different looks that they've seen, and the fact that they put themselves out there like that. I wish more fighters would do that, but I do think that you need to like the loyalty and the faithfulness to the people who got you where you're going and stuff, like who you click with. Just because a gym has better fighters or doesn't mean that it's gonna be the best matchup for you, or it's gonna be the best place for you. You got to have that who you bond with, who you click with. But I do think that you need to have exposure to different styles, and the more looks you can get, the better.
I agree. And I think that is something that I would like to see more of too in the local scene. And Ray Hayes is a perfect example of that too. You know, he's trained at pretty much every gym in this area at some point. And of course, you know, he's got his home gym at Parabellum. But I think, and we were talking about that on our episode with when I was talking with him, and he kind of was saying the same thing. Like, I wish there was more collaboration in St. Louis. And I think, and he made a fair point of why there's not, is because a lot of times these guys are fighting each other. So that makes it kind of difficult. So I think when we see more fighters coming in from other states and we are sending more of our guys out to compete, then I think it will be a lot easier to do that. Without creating all the drama.
I don't know how you. I don't think there's a perfect way to go like a formula for that, because these guys do still need to fight each other in the beginning.
Yes, in the amateur level, definitely.
Yeah, but that cross training should be. Ray has trained everywhere too. He's obviously he's a likable guy, but he's willing to put himself out there. I don't think that everybody's willing to do that, and some people are just not that liked either, or they're assholes. So they don't like other people. I don't know if that's the case or why more people don't do that, but it's definitely needed. But that balance between, we still have to find fights locally, and how do you get better as a whole too.
Oh yeah, we gotta figure out a way to do that, I think. And again, I don't know the answer either, but I think we're getting somewhere. I think we're making a lot of progress with it. And I think that the more that we collaborate, then we'll see more of a Dakota, a Ray Hayes. We'll see more of that come out of St. Louis, because it's not like we're withholding any kind of secrets from each other. Like, you know, and that's what Ray was saying. He's like, I'm a product of St. Louis MMA because I'm getting looks from all these different coaches in the area.
Some of that, though, I think there's a fear that my fighter will leave. The coach isn't recommending it to their fighters, or isn't wanting them to do that, because that's how you make your bank. You know what I'm saying? And when you lose these guys to other gyms, there's a little bit of an issue there. Which is why I always stress to people, man, when you find somebody you click with as a coach, stay with them. That's who you
Yeah,
should ride
give
with. That's who you
them
should
a
rock
little
with.
attention. Yeah, because sometimes
But
it's not even always the fighter. It's maybe that's a better gym for them. Maybe it's going to be better for their career to go train somewhere else. And so why would they want to put their career in the hands of someone who doesn't really, care about them that much, or care to put the time into to helping them? So I think sometimes, and we see this not even just on a local level, but with gyms all over the place, all over the world. Sometimes, like Francis Ngannou left his gym, and look what happened to his career when he went to Extreme. So I think that there are definitely fighters where they bounce around from so many gyms to where it's like, okay, you've trained at 5 different gyms now. Maybe you're the problem. but at the same time, there's a lot of fighters that excel when they leave and go to a new gym. So I think it just depends on the fighter.
yeah, I'm not knocking coaches or saying that you don't need that. But a lot of times
Oh yeah,
when you excel at these other gyms, it's because of the training partners you had.
that's true.
You
Yeah.
steel sharp and steel. So that's why I say cross training is necessary. It's needed
Yeah,
to get better, because you need to
I
see these
agree.
looks and these guys that are who are close to your weight class and who are good as well. But that doesn't mean that those coaches are going to give you the best personal advice. Are going to be
Right.
have your best interest in mind and heart in either.
Yep.
Because I ain't saying everybody's looking out for themselves, but everybody's looking out for their brand
Yeah.
above anything and everything else. So if you can find somebody that's down for you and helping you, and that's usually the first people that you cook with. That's who you. That's why I say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's hard too, as a coach to kind of trust your fighter to go train somewhere else, unless you're really familiar with them. So I could see that being difficult, but at the same time, a lot of good coaches are usually not super worried about it, because they know, like, this is my guy, and he's going to train here for 1 day a week or 2 days a week or whatever. So I trust that, you know that's that I feel like that's a good coach fighter relationship if they can figure out a way to make that work, for
We
sure.
were also talking about Fightville earlier. Dustin Poirier, Tim
Yeah.
Crater was his coach when on that show, and I didn't know this at the time, and for a long time it kind of irked me because he left as soon as he got to the UFC. He left Tim Crater, but Tim Crater, I recently watched an interview where he told him, he said, "You have to go, you have to, because I've done all I can do for you to
Yep.
get better," and a lot of that had to do with who his training partners were. There wasn't nobody at the gym except really Tim Crater who was on that level. So he's like, you have to go to. I think it was Team Couture at the time or whatever it was. You have to go
Sure.
explore this world and see what's out there. It might have even been ATT at the time too. I digress because it's irrelevant to the fact that Crater was like, I can't do nothing else for you. For you to get better and do and to go where where you're going to go, you have to leave the gym.
Yeah.
That's a selfless. That's love.
Oh yeah,
I don't know how many
absolutely.
coaches would be willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and it sucks because I wish we could get to the point where a lot of these St. Louis fighters could stay here and train here. But it is hard for them to find training partners on that level because there's only a handful of UFC fighters even in St. Louis to begin with, whereas down in Miami in those areas, they've got tons of them. So it makes it a little bit more difficult. So
Man, it depends on the weight class. We got a gang of UFC talent.
we
Like
really do. And we have a lot on the way, I feel like, too. Within the
I for
next couple
sure,
years.
I believe that as well too.
Yeah,
These
I
guys
think
like
it's
put
going to
in
be
so much
huge.
work, man. Like I remember 2018, 2017, we had the fights where Paige Van Zandt, I think, was the main event. And I was walking around with my buddy who watched fights on TV, but he never trained or anything. And we seen Sean Woodson and Charles Johnson. And I was like, hey, get a picture with these guys before they hit it big, because they're driving their I promise you. Sean remembers it. I don't know if Charles remembers, but Sean remembers it. I said, get a picture before these dudes hit it, before they go big, because they will. There wasn't as many guys then as there are now that are on that same mindset. Like Clarkston
Yeah.
Smith, that dude's going somewhere. So
Yes.
you better get your time in, your pictures in now, because he is going to be somebody who 5 years from now is in the UFC if everything stays on course the way it looks, because he's got that work ethic, he's got that grind, he's got that pedigree, he's got the gym and those guys in that weight class that he trains with that back him all the time. I think St. Louis. It's Clark's not the only one, but he's the one that pops out of my head right now.
Sure.
They are on that track. Ray Hayes, he's got three pro fights already, but he seems to be the guy that's headed in that direction. The the amount of work that he puts in, and the cross training he does, and then he still stays loyal to his people who come up with his game plan, help him with his diet, all that great stuff, man. Those are just two people that come to mind real quick, but you are right. There's a lot of people from St. Louis who seem to be on that way.
Yeah,
Tavon.
and I have a hard time with recency bias, so all I'm thinking of right now is Friday night. But but there was a lot of killers on that card. Yeah, Tavon. I mean, even like the early fights, like obviously they're really early in their career, but the performances they put on were insane. For that level.
What was the guy from your gym? It was for his first fight.
Jackson Ward.
Wow. He's
yeah.
What weight class was that? Because they look like they were in two weight classes apart.
I honestly do not remember what the weight class was on that.
I think it was 170.
Something like that.
He was
either had to be 170 or it wasn't 155. It had to be more than that. Might have
been a catch weight.
Jackson's a bigger guy, I think.
He was huge.
Yeah.
Man, he was so much bigger.
Yeah, that was crazy.
The guy he fought, his ground game, you could tell by their grappling. Like he was trying to throw up the high guard and stuff like that. Doing a little Eddie Bravo with the rubber guard.
Yeah.
His grappling was pretty good. Jackson powered right through that. Yeah, he did. His performance was great. I don't know. He seems young too. I don't. Yeah. I searched his page a little bit. It seemed like he had a lot of interest. So I don't know that.
Yeah.
How far he'll go, but the potential is there. Like I believe he did some CrossFit, but he's a content
he's
creator
a big fitness guy. Yeah,
yeah.
I think I want to say I think he works at Supplement Superstore or First Form or something like that. I think I've seen. I don't know him super well. He's a really nice guy. And it honestly, it's so funny seeing him because I was kind of in that backstage area with the ES crew and the Wolves Den crew and everybody. And Jackson is such a nice, chill guy. So I'm sitting there. He's just chilling before his fight, eating a granola bar or whatever. And then I just see him go out there and do that. I'm like, what the heck?
He went ham out there for sure. It was fun. It was fun to see that. Like,
oh my God, yeah, it was crazy.
I think he was 0 fights before, and he definitely looked like he had been in the cage.
Didn't look like a debut at all.
No, it definitely didn't. It was very impressive. Zachary Binkins, or not Zach, Jeremiah. No, it is Zach. Yeah, Binkins.
Yeah, Zach.
From Hunt. He had put on a great performance as well.
Yeah,
it's good to see those younger guys do it. Oh, Atticus from Wise Warrior. Man, that was one of the most exciting 2 minutes or minute and a half, whatever it was.
Crazy fight.
I thought that it almost looked like he was going to get put away, like that he was going to lose.
I know.
And then he threw that left hook that caught him, and the kicks are great. They were just the exclamation point on. Yes. Once he hit him with where I was sitting, you could see that. I forget the guy's name. I'm sorry, but who he fought. When he hit him with that left hook, you could just see he backed up, and his eyes were like doing this. And then when he threw the 2 kicks back to back, man, what a performance from such. I think he's like 23. 22.
I know, that's the thing. These guys are just getting started, and they're already really good. It's crazy.
The kicks he was throwing, man. Yeah. Wow. Like the accuracy. Yeah. It was such an exciting event, man.
Oh my God, I know. I think the first 3 fights were all first round finishes. It was just like back to back. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, but the
crazy.
Atticus fight wasn't just a one-sided thing. Like Atticus was getting hammed up. Like that was a really good back and forth, and then that left hook, man, wow.
Yeah, that was insane, and I think that's good. I think as an amateur, I think it's good to have fights like that because then you show that you can handle adversity. Because if all your amateur fights are perfect and you have no adversity, then when you go pro, like you're gonna have adversity at some point. So I feel like it probably would be better to handle it as an amateur and know what to do. Now, of course, then there's always, well, now there's film of you and there's an area of your game that could potentially be exposed. But at the same time, I do think it's good to have that adversity as an AMI. And I think that's why too, like I really, really did enjoy Logan Jones fight. And Logan's obviously a teammate of mine at ES, but I think that fight is probably going to be one of the best things that happened to his career because first of all, he went the distance, faced a decent amount of adversity in that fight. You know, he got stunned and, you know, maybe it didn't go exactly the way he was hoping it would, but I think that's a good thing. And I think that we're going to probably see a more refined version of Logan in his next fight because of that fight.
How did the fight end? How did that fight end? In the third round when the bell rang, how did that fight end? Where were they at? What were they doing? Logan was on top. Logan was on top. If that fight had gone, I know we say this, and it's not any longer, but he had.
Oh, you mean like the last little bit of that fight?
The
Yeah.
very end of the fight, he had fought through adversity, and
Yes.
was starting to get the upper hand. I talked to him a little bit afterwards. His mindset too was so great.
Oh yeah, he handled that
wasn't-
loss amazingly.
Yes, and I know that when you talk to people, you say things that you feel, but you're
Yeah.
not really like you're gonna. I'm sure he's at home and he digested later, and it was a little bit of a setback, and it sucks to lose in front of people. But the fact that he overcame adversity after getting stunned, and that he fought through it, and then when the fight ended, he was in the upper. He had the upper hand. I thought it showed tremendous heart, and the growth
Yes.
that he'll get from that going forward is something that that winning doesn't give you.
Yep.
Winning, you'll never get that from winning ever. People are like, "What do you? If you win, no, nobody ever wins all the time at anything. Not even John Jones. He's got losses in wrestling. He's got a disqualification. He's also a steroid user. I'm just teasing. But everyone loses, so that's where you grow and that's where you get better at
Exactly.
is through that adversity. I think that every fighter, there's boxes you need to check before you become pro. Did you fight a grinder? Did you fight a wrestler? Did you fight a good guy with good stand up? And how did you perform against them? And if you didn't beat all of these guys or you didn't check all of these boxes, your pro career it's still up in the air. But if you've established that before you've gotten there, did you get rocked as an amateur? How did you overcome that adversity? Did you have a loss, and how did you respond to that? Like I got a friend of mine he was so spectacular early in his career that I was so worried that when he did have a loss or he did have to face adversity, that his ego wouldn't allow him to overcome that moment or those times. And man, I was wrong, and he's done nothing but flourish even more since then. But that's one of the hardest things too: is how do you respond when you have those adversities? Not just during the fight, but if you've lost or during the fight if you've gotten stunned like Logan did, and how do you push through that? Those are boxes that you should check before, and that's why that's what makes a good pro.
Absolutely. I agree. I think also, and we were kind of talking about this earlier, that your amateur career is so much more important now than I think it ever has been because, you know, and I know you need like a certain amount of fights to go pro or whatever sometimes, but once you go pro, I feel like, you know, there's no turning back. So if you don't have all that kind of worked out in your game before you go pro, then, you know, you take a lot of risk because your pro career, yeah, I mean, it all counts. It's all going to be on your record. So
every loss is a pro. I mean, I would assume that if you're fighting, you're most of them are typically trying to go to the UFC. Every loss that you have is a 6 to 18 month setback.
Right.
So if you're 3-0, 4-0, and you're knocking on that door, you get a loss. It's 6 to 18 months. Your pro career should be all about every fight. How does it propel me to my next fight? What does it do for me to move me forward? That's what I think that the fighters should be looking at. How do I get 100%. To that next level? And every fight that you take as a pro should be about that next step.
Yeah, Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think that it's weird because we're in a time where it's kind of easier to get in the UFC now than it used to be. And I feel like, and not that it's easy, but I feel like they're signing more fighters now is really kind of more what's happening. Not that it's really gotten easier, but there's more opportunities in the UFC now than there used to be. There's more events. There's more promotions. There's PFL. There's Gamebred. There's, there was Bellator, now part of PFL. So there's so many more options for fighters now. And I feel like that is a good thing, but it also does make that amateur career really, really important because then when you do go pro, I mean, you could be in the UFC after 5 to 8 fights, theoretically, as a pro. I mean, it's not unheard of. We've seen it happen in maybe not in lightweight or bantamweight or those divisions, but heavyweight or flyweight. I mean, you could be in the UFC at 7-0. So, and depends on the background that you have in other martial arts as well. But it's an interesting time in the sport for sure.
And you can also be 10-0, 8-0, and not be even looked at by the UFC.
Yeah.
because of your strength of schedule. That matters. I don't think fighters understand like that does matter.
It does
a lot. And also, like the UFC is looking for style. You have flair. How did you win? How did these wins come about? Are you boring?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I think that's something that Ray Hayes definitely has. He's got flair. For sure.
He's got a lot of sauce. Not even because of the nickname. That dude's got so much style and flavor. Here's how I became a fan of Ray Hayes. I did a red carpet show, and I picked Aaron Leak to beat him the night. I think it was his last amateur fight. And I don't pay attention to who's standing next to or whatever. But Ray Hayes, after his fight, I was like, "Hey, congratulations, good win." And he was like, "Oh, pick me to lose, huh? Pick me to lose, huh?" And I was like, "Oh man, it's just kind of what we just said. No worries." Well, then like 2 weeks later, he does a video montage of where he overlays me talking about his fight. And here's a clip here, here's a clip here, and here's a clip here. And then he shows the punch, the stand up, and then the knockout, and then the salute. And then it's like, who the fuck is this guy?
That is awesome.
I immediately reached out to him and was like, dude, we got to talk. We got to meet. We have to converge because that's hysterical. That's style. That's flavor. That's stuff you can't teach either, man. Like he just has that in him.
He's brilliant at marketing himself. Brilliant at it.
Yes. The writing in the note and putting in there. What I want to see, what I would love to see for his next fight or one of these coming fights is somebody with a little more pedigree than his opponent. Like their background, they're just a step up in competition a little bit. I think that he's got all of his tools, all the skills to go to that next level, and I just want to see him get that opportunity because what is he 3-0 now with 3 stops? Mm-hmm. But now we got to start getting some guys with a little more experience, a little better records, and so that Ray could be in the UFC in 2-3 more fights. To be honest with you, if the right opponents come about and he wins the way he's been winning, or even wins in a good style, he's not that far away at all.
No, he's really not, especially with the schedule that he's had. He's had a lot of fights in a short period of time. If he can even keep up half of that pace, I think he will probably be in the UFC within the next couple of years for sure.
I want to say that he's averaging 1 round per fight over the course of his whole amateur and pro career. It's one round per fight. That's amazing.
It's insane.
I don't care who you're fighting. That's amazing.
Yeah, because we see it all the time. You know, there's a matchup on paper that looks like it should be a clean sweep, and then it ends up being a competitive fight. And even if the person wins, it's like, well, we weren't expecting that. You know, we're expecting you to run right through them. So,
and we've seen him get bopped in the face too, twice now. When he fought, he got rocked. He's got a cut underneath his eye in Kansas City, and fought through, and then Bop sat down on a 1-2, finished that guy off on the ground immediately. He got boloed, man. You could hear the pop from the punch from the fight he just had twice. Pop, pop.
Yeah.
And then Ray was like, "We're going to end this real quick." And
he went right through it. Yeah. I think he was talking about that. He has a background in boxing, was how he started. Before he transitioned to MMA. I think that probably has a lot to do with it. Just his ability to kind of walk through punches and not be afraid to get hit.
But if you look at his wins, he's had just as many submissions as he's had TKOs or knockouts.
Yeah,
Like he's a very well-rounded fighter, man.
he really is. Yeah, I've been really impressed with him from what I've seen so far. He's got it all. He's got everything you could possibly want. I mean, he's very marketable. He's finally kind of figured out his weight class at featherweight, which I think he will do very well in that weight class. And then now he's got, he had the two belts as an AME and NFA. Now maybe another belt as a pro in NFA. That'd be cool. But I do agree. Cool, I think his next fight should be like somebody with a little something something.
It's hard to get that. It's hard to get that though. Like
I know.
Like, for somebody like him, I mean, he's gonna. I would assume that. I don't know where or how it's going to, but nobody around here is really able to give him that's willing to fight him or able to fight him. Like they post on there, somebody fight me. I think he posted today, or he reposted what Knuckle Up Promotions was trying to get him a fight. It's hard to get a fight for somebody like him. The weight class only has so many people in the area. It costs so much money to bring somebody in from from another state or wherever. Yeah. It's very difficult to do for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's another thing, too, that makes it difficult is, a lot of times these promotions are barely making any money as it is. So it's like, to be able to fly people in, it's tough. That's tough.
There's not a lot of money in the sport unless you're way big or you've been around forever. What Nemesis does should not ever be taken for granted or understated at all.
I agree.
The money and the effort they put in. I mean, I told them people Friday night, Thursday night, I said, you guys know that you're insane, right? Because this can't be fun.
No.
This can't be fun. All of the fights that fall through, the weights, the issues at weigh-ins, like just the stuff that doesn't happen easily at all. It's a very difficult thing to do. And Brad and Marlene, 100% salute to you guys and the whole team, all of the Nemesis people who work there, because the time and effort that they put into it, they're not financially getting it back, that's for sure. So they're absolutely doing it for the love of the sport and fighters. So kudos to them.
Oh my God, yeah. What they're doing is really, really going to help out a lot of these fighters with just building their brand too, because they're giving them a platform. And that's one thing that I feel like is very, like you said, kind of taken for granted sometimes is, there's promotions that, you can go and get a fight and even kind of looking at this in a comparison to like the UFC, like UFC versus PFL. Okay, well, if PFL pays you a little bit more, that's cool. But the UFC is probably going to give you a much bigger name for yourself. And it's probably going to help you grow your brand as a fighter a little bit better than the PFL would, at least right now. So it's like those little things that people kind of don't think about sometimes. Yeah.
Name me a fighter besides Ngannou who left the UFC and became a bigger name.
I mean, maybe Cyborg, but even that's kind of hard to say.
She was a bigger name before.
Because she was already such a big name. Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
so it's like, I don't know that she's any bigger now.
I think she was an afterthought when she left the UFC because of what happened to her from the champ. Like, that beatdown,
that's true.
TKO. For me, she was an afterthought. Like, before that, I wanted to see her fight all these women, Kat Zingano and Ronda Rousey and stuff. But after what's her name, like, pieced her up, I didn't even care. I didn't care. She wasn't a draw to me no more.
Yeah, I guess she's one of the few that left the UFC and was like still getting big wins after they left. Because a lot of people leave the UFC and then they start losing and they
but she was getting wins.
Usually a downhill spiral. Yeah.
Because usually the UFC's smart. They're getting rid of you at the end. Like they've seen it. I mean, I say smart. It's also kind of shitty, but they know there's not a lot of value left in you. So, but look what they did with Jim Miller. Look what they've done with Jim Miller.
Oh my God.
He 100, 200, and 300. So I mean, it's because he's exciting too, and he's not hard to deal with behind the scenes either.
Exactly. That's another thing too that a lot of people kind of forget about is like, you got to negotiate with these fighters, and there's some fighters that they'll pull out of 80% of their fights, and then there's some fighters who will show up every single time. They do not care who the opponent is, who the weight class, they just want to fight. So, you have different types of fighters in these organizations too.
And I hate to go back to this, but this is why I'll never consider John Jones the GOAT, because he only fights when he's never taken a last minute replacement. He doesn't fight anytime, whenever, whoever. It's very strategic. It took him 2 or 3 years to get to the heavyweight division because he had to do it
Right.
a certain way or whatever. It's worked for him, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
smart.
It's worked for him, but that doesn't endear. It doesn't endear me to you. It doesn't make me like clamor to want to. I'm not a fan of his. If his pay-per-view's on, yeah, I'll watch it.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
It's because he's so great at it. But you better be that good at it if you're turning down fights. You better be super. Yeah, because that's just not how you're kept around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why a lot of people have fallen in love with Volkanovski, because he's just down. He's down, and sometimes maybe it's not the best decision for him to do that, but as a fan, you gotta respect it, man. You gotta respect it.
I do, and here's where I'm talking out both sides of my mouth, because he should have never taken that second Islam fight.
No, I agree.
He should have. It was so close the first time, even though I do think he won. They were such a good matchup and so close that's a fight. You need a proper training camp for that. Not
Yes.
smashing beers, playing rugby with your boys, and coming in there. But I wish he wouldn't have. But it is what it is.
Agree.
Hopefully he can retool. Hopefully he can retool and get back. I always call it the Kelvin Gastelum syndrome, where sometimes you get, like when he fought Adesanya, he had that one fight where like he pushed Adesanya to the brink. Like it was one of the dopest moments in MMA, where Adesanya looks across from him in between round 4 and 5, and he's "I'll be prepared to die." And then Adesanya he was better in round 5, but Kelvin Gastelum was so good. But after that loss, you lose that mystique. And he was on a 4-fight losing streak. It's hard to get yourself back to believing in how great you are after you've lost.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it does probably have to mess with your confidence, because we see it all the time when fighters start losing. It just seems like it's really hard to get back on top, especially in those lighter weight classes, like 155 and below. I feel like that's where it's really difficult.
The talent level is so from 20th in the world to 550th. It's not that big. Like there's so many of them and so skilled that it is hard to continuously compete at such a high level. But I mean, I can't tell you how many 3-0 amateur fighters I've met or trained with that thought they were the best in the world. Like literally, they believe that, and then they lose, and they don't even want to fight anymore.
Yeah.
Because it does something to you when you find that we talked about earlier, being humbled. That's why those guys who fight through that adversity and are able to bounce back and continue on the course that they're on, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was listening to Sean Brady talk about that on Rogan, where he was talking about when he was undefeated and he got his first loss. And he said it was the most relieving thing ever, because he's like, I just got it out of the
way. And he's a guy who's going to go far.
Oh, yeah.
Other guys are like, I got that loss and I just couldn't believe it. I'm not who I thought I was. Like I've had conversations with so many fighters who really thought at 4-0, 5-0, 3-0 that they were the best in the world. The only thing standing between them and proving that was opportunity. And then they go out and they get ragdolled, or they get beat up by another amateur, and they're just like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's honestly kind of sad sometimes too, because it's usually a fighter that has a lot of talent and could easily, do very well, but getting over that confidence issue. I mean, it doesn't matter how many hours you train. That's just hard, really, to get through that sometimes.
Loss is a part of life. No matter what avenue or aspect you do of it, you're going to lose. If it's not in sport, it's in life. You're going to lose. You don't get the job that you were looking for. Your friend died. Your parents died. Loss is a part of life, and being able to work through that mentally, and then the physical aspect of it is what makes winners winners.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that is probably one of the most interesting things about this sport is just how mental it actually is. I mean, of course, you have to stay in shape, you have to train your butt off. I mean, that's a given because everybody's doing that. But then the mental side, the strategy side, you know, the hunger to learn more, the mindset, all of that, I feel like is really what makes this sport interesting to me and what makes it so difficult to compete in. It's just how mental it really is.
The only other sport that I kind of compare it to, like other than other combat sports, is like
Sure.
football. The best football team in the world in the NFL, if they don't show up, they'll get ran over by the other team. If you think that, like, if you don't mentally go out there and be a dog, and like this is my time, this is my moment. If you don't match that intensity, you'll get beat. And fighting is a lot like that. If you don't come in here prepared and mentally prepared that I'm gonna go do it. This no easy nights. I'm gonna wreck this guy's life, and I'm mentally prepared to do that. Like that's how you have to think.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I could definitely see that. Yeah. I feel like that's kind of reminds me of well, we've got UFC 299 coming up this Saturday. Kind of reminds me of Piotr Jan is one fighter on that card that I feel like is a big question mark for me because if you look at his last 5 fights, I think he's won maybe one of them, one or two. I think only one actually. But if you look at the way that he's lost, I think 2 of them were split decisions. The last one was a unanimous decision. That was Marab. And then he also had the DQ with Aljamain, and that was how Aljamain won the belt because that was when I think that was when Jan was the champ.
Yep.
So that really I don't know what to think about that because he's fighting Song Yadong, who's kind of a newcomer in the bantamweight division. So he's pretty young, but he has had an impressive career so far. So I'm like, I don't know. Is this the end for Piotr Jan, or is he gonna turn it around? And because he's still never been finished, he's never really. I mean, obviously he's faced adversity, especially in his last fight, but it's not like he's really been completely run over or finished. So I don't know. I'm like, I don't even know how to predict that fight.
I think it comes down to I don't know about his opponent. I haven't watched him fight or anything, but for me, I believe Peter Yan is still his skill set is still at that. He hasn't lost a whole lot skill wise.
Right.
He hasn't lost a
Yeah.
step, his speed or anything. It does come down to has he gotten over or has he gotten everything back on track mentally to where
Yep.
he thinks that he is the best in the world that night. If he showed, I would pick him. I pick him to win with without knowing his opponent that well. I don't know what his like if his stock is rising or whatever. How what he's done those last few fights. But Peter Yan is still that guy.
Oh yeah.
Who's he lost to? He's lost to the best in the world.
The
Even
current
and some of them,
champion.
yeah, some of them are split decisions. So I
Yeah.
thought he beat the champ actually
I
when they
did
fought.
too.
I didn't think that. Yeah. So if he mentally thinks is in the game, I don't see how he loses. I still think he's one of the best in the world.
I agree. And he has multiple ways to win fights too, because even in the Aljamain fight where he was supposed to be at a disadvantage in the grappling, I thought he was out grappling Aljamain in that fight. And even though obviously he lost the fight because he kneed him in the face while he was down, but if that wouldn't have happened,
It was a
Jan
fight
would
that he was
have walked
dominating.
away with the belt. What'd you say?
Yeah, he was dominating that fight.
Oh,
So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's another thing too. Like, how did that mess with him mentally? Like, losing the belt in that kind of a way, like knowing you pretty much won that fight, but you're not the champ and you have a loss on your record now. I just wonder how did that affect him mentally? You know?
obviously, either Aljamain just got way better wrestling or had a better game plan the second time,
Yeah.
or Yan was like, I already dominated him once. Now
Mm-hmm.
watch me just and he took it for a little he took it for granted a little bit or
Yeah.
underestimated him a little bit. Uh,
I think that could be part of it too.
how disrespectful or how disrespected would you be if you were Sterling though? all he's done is win. Because he was the most disliked champion that I can remember in a long time
Oh
because of the
my
way he
God.
won the
Yeah.
belt. And then all he did was win and win and win. And then when O'Malley finally did lose the belt, they didn't give him a rematch.
Yeah. Yeah, that was kind of weird. And I don't know that maybe Aljamain didn't want the rematch as bad as we think he did. I don't know. I don't know, but I think that I don't know. I think if they did a rematch, I still would pick O'Malley, and I know Aljamain is really really good, but I think O'Malley's also really really good. And I think that and I remember when that fight was about to happen, I said O'Malley was going to win and everyone thought I was insane.
I didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah, like nobody did.
Yeah.
And but you know what what was kind of my part of my reasoning for picking O'Malley, obviously besides his skill, was more his mindset. I think that he has a really good mindset. And I think that's a lot of why he wins.
His skill set grows by leaps and bounds.
Yes.
Like every time that he comes out and fights, it's a new Sean O'Malley. I do think that comes to an end though this Saturday.
You think so? You're picking Cheetah?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I think he's already beat him once.
That's true.
That's hard to get. No matter what, that's a memory. And he didn't. He beat him. He stopped him. And when people always check the kick, I know you got hurt because of me. That stays in your mind, whether anybody wants to admit that or not. If you've lost to somebody and you've lost by stoppage, you remember that.
That's true.
It could happen again. It could happen again the same way. I think that Vera. I think Vera even stops him almost.
Wow.
5. Yeah. Round 3.
Yeah, I still haven't decided who I'm picking yet. I'm leaning toward O'Malley still. I haven't really thought about it enough to come to a decision, but I'm leaning toward O'Malley at this point still. I don't know. I think it's going to depend on how Cheeto kind of utilizes his leg kicks. I think that will be a big factor. I think that would be the obvious game plan to me against O'Malley, would be to really start chopping away at his legs as early as possible. Because that's why O'Malley is so good in a lot of ways. It's because of his footwork and his movement. So if you can slow down his movement, and that's what he did in the first fight. I mean, he completely stopped his movement. He couldn't move.
Right.
Because I remember he kind of moved, and I don't remember which leg kick kind of started it or what happened exactly. But I remember he kind of tripped over himself a little bit, or maybe he rolled his ankle, or I don't know what happened. But he lost his balance completely at one point, and that was like the downward spiral from there. Like it really didn't get better for O'Malley after that point. And there was still a decent amount of time left in the round when that happened, I think. So it took him a while to get him out of there from when he initially was injured, because O'Malley was still trying to stay in the fight, I guess. But then it got to the point where, when your style is so reliant on your movement and your footwork, then I feel like when you don't have that, it's kind of hard, because it's not like he's going to take Cheeto down and grapple with him. I mean, that's not a good idea either. So
and that's why I think that Cheeto wins, because
yeah,
when he throws standing, it's to end the fight. Like
yes.
he's got some starch on his punches, his kicks. Everything he throws is with bad intention. Where O'Malley is a little bit more of a volume guy, or I would say but he's also a precision guy. He wants to he wants and sit in a certain spot, a little bit like Conor, where precision beats power. But Vera's all of that. He's better on the ground. He's got power. He's usually putting it in the right spot. He's a scary man. Like
he is
at 135 pounds. That's a scary individual, man.
Oh yeah, that's such a hard fight to call. I mean, I know Cheeto won the first fight, but I still wonder, if O'Malley's able to make enough adjustments to kind of correct that. I don't know. I really don't know. He's got a great coach. He's got Tim Welch in his corner, and really he's the only guy that Tim coaches, so it's kind of funny. But
I haven't seen him get better like I've seen O'Malley though. Like people get better, they win fights, but the leaps and bounds that O'Malley has made over the
yes.
last 2 years is probably the most of any UFC fighter that I've seen.
Oh my God, yeah.
I think Vera's just nasty, and my kid really likes O'Malley, and he doesn't shut up about him. So that may be why I'm leaning the other way too. But he kind of reminds me of I'm having a brain fart here. Who did Conor knock out in 13 seconds? Oh my goodness, from Brazil. It was the
Is
win.
that Aldo?
Yeah, yes, thank you. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Aldo.
He does.
Yeah. I just think he's better. He's going to be better than O'Malley that night. And there's a little bit of he's not playing around. Right? I think O'Malley is trying to paint a picture of art where Vera's not. It's destruction. It's destruction, and we'll see. I mean, it is a difficult matchup. I'm making it sound like it's going to be one-sided, but it's definitely not. When you think through the process of it, O'Malley can definitely win this fight.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's going to.
We'll see. Man, it is so hard to predict MMA, especially on this level. Like, title fights are so hard to predict all the time. I mean, look at Sean Strickland. I mean, I didn't see that coming.
No, but a lot of people did, though. Like, my nephew and his buddies they were just like, oh, he's going to win tonight. I'm like, get out of here. No way. Like, and the UFC didn't even, here's the fun, the UFC didn't even want him to get a title shot.
Nope.
But, yeah, Adesanya was like, no, we're going to run that. Go grab him. We're running that through. Because I still want to give these fans what they want, and I want to fight him. The most improbable champion that I can think of in a long time. Wow.
Insane.
I definitely didn't think he was going to win.
Same with Alexa Grasso. I didn't think she was going to win against Shevchenko either. When she submitted her.
Do you think that she's got to that point where she's not as mentally prepared or mentally in the fight game as she used to be?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine the pressure of being Valentina Shevchenko?
The Russian spy?
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's so much expectation of her to not only win, but to destroy every single opponent that comes her way. So I wonder how much of that, or also like her ego, maybe she thought she could just run through Alexa Grasso, and same with some of her other opponents that we've seen her not necessarily to where she was losing the fight, but where she faced some adversity. I think that's a lot of a mental thing for Shevchenko, because skill for skill, I don't see anybody in the UFC really that is on her level as far as that division goes.
How long can you stay on top?
Exactly.
How long can you stay at the very top of the game? Like, because it encompasses the physical and the mental aspect to stay at that high level for so long.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're like, well, he's lost 3 fights in a row or 4 of his last 5. Well, who did that person, he or she, lose to?
Right.
It's only the best in the world. Or somebody like her, she's only fought the best in the world for how many years now? So,
yeah,
it's difficult to keep that same mentality rolling through, and that same like, are you dedicated to the preparation like you used to be? Are you all in like you had before? What got you here? I think that she may be looking some past her UFC career now. What's my next chapter? And if, I always remember this one saying: if you got one leg in and one leg out, that's a bad thing. You're gonna get knocked out or choked out. I
could see that for sure.
She's at that point in her career.
She could be. Yeah. I mean, it's insane when you look at her resume, and also just looking at her skills, but on their own. Gosh, yeah, she's just, and not only is she insanely good on the feet, she's also really good on the ground. I mean, when you look at, it's just hard to find fighters that are that skilled in so many different areas and have an exceptionally high skill in one area. Usually when you see somebody like, I'll give an example, Israel Adesanya, insanely good at kickboxing. But if you put him on the ground, he might have some problems, which is why he has such good takedown defense.
Yes. Sean Woodson is a guy. His ground game has ever evolved and gotten way better.
Yeah.
But stand up, he's a nightmare.
Oh my God.
Everyone's game plan is to take him down. Can you do that though?
Do you think Sean Woodson will be on this St. Louis card coming up?
They better.
I
they
hope
better.
so.
I'm actually going to start tweeting to Dana White. How do you have a UFC card without Sean Woodson?
We have to have
UFC in St. Louis without Sean Woodson.
He's the one guy that still trains primarily in St. Louis. I mean, he doesn't leave for his camps, does he? I don't think he does.
No, not anymore. Not that I'm aware of anymore. He did for a little bit. I interviewed him a while back, and he said that he went to the Cross in Kansas City.
That's right.
He would go do stuff out there. But even in the interview, I didn't know that he had done that actually. And I told him what I told you earlier about guys leaving St. Louis. And I was like, I didn't mean no disrespect by that. And he was like, no, I want all of my stuff to be from St. Louis. Wherever I'm going or however high I get, I want it all to be from St. Louis. He is
That's awesome.
The St. Louis MMA guy.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, we got to appreciate him more.
What a great representation of St. Louis.
Oh my God.
Like, yeah, my kid's a fanboy. I try not to fanboy out over the dude, but I love Sean Woodson. Him and my brother kickboxed years ago.
Nice.
And my brother at the time was 8-0 as a kickboxer.
Wow.
And when him and Sean kickboxed though, that you could tell that night he was something special. Because woo, he didn't even touch him really. And you're talking about a guy who's 8-0 and kick, like he didn't even touch Sean, man. It was one-sided. Wow. He's such an exceptional athlete. And then when you got to talk to him, you see that his drive and his work ethic. So you knew that he was going places.
Yeah.
Exceptional man, exceptional fighter. I'm so glad that he's in my eyes, the representation of MMA fighting.
I agree.
If the UFC doesn't have him on there, it's such a travesty.
Oh, it would be, that would just be wrong if they didn't have them on there. I feel like that needs to happen. But at the same time, it's like, who does he fight next? Because he beat Charles Jourdain, and, some people may not know Charles Jourdain and they may not see a number next to his name, but Charles Jourdain is highly skilled, and that's a huge win for Sean. A huge win, even just to survive. That entire 15 minutes with Charles Jourdain is something in itself. But to dominate him like that, which you could argue that you could have given him all 3 rounds, but he definitely won 2 out of those 3 rounds, clearly.
Did you watch live when they announced the winner?
Yeah.
I thought the same thing Sean did. When I watched the replay back, there's no mix-up at all. But when I watched it live and it said it, I thought he did say the other guy won. I was like, are you and every judge, the Canadian judges are so biased. There was a couple of fights on that card that went the other way, or a split decision, or that should have never gone that way. I was like, they robbed my boy. How are you going to rob him of that? And thank God they didn't, because he did win so convincingly in 2 of those rounds that he was given the decision. He earned the decision.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to put him top 15 in the world right now, isn't it? Let's see where he's ranked.
I don't think he's ranked yet, but he is in featherweight, so that division is just extremely stacked. If he were in any other division, I think he would be in the top 15 right now. If he weren't in, to me, the 135, 145, and 155 divisions, it takes you a lot longer to get into the rankings than it does the others. So I don't think he's ranked yet. But I wouldn't be mad at a ranked opponent for him next. I wouldn't be mad at that at all.
No, I think that they definitely should. I thought that he was cracking the top 15. But sometimes I can't even figure out. Here it is. It only goes to 15. He's not in the top 15. Alex Karras, or Karras, or whatever you say
Casares?
that.
That'd be a great fight for him.
Yeah, and that puts him at number 15.
That would be a very entertaining fight, too. I feel like stylistically that would be fun.
Yeah, I do too. There's Edson Barboza. I'm not.
That'd be crazy.
I'd rather pass on that one.
Yeah. That would be insane.
He's only got one skill set, really. Still, well, he's hard to take down, but his stand-up has been so great, and he's still fighting in the UFC 10 years later, or however long it's been. that's a testament to how great and explosive his stand up
God.
is.
Yeah. Yeah, Edson
Bryce
Barboza
Mitchell's ranked
is
10th.
no joke.
I don't think Bryce Mitchell's going to fight anymore, though.
That's a good question. I don't know. And if he does, he's probably going to want to fight a grappler, I would imagine.
He got worked by that one guy. I forget. I don't remember who it was on the ground, and he got
I think
beat
that
up
was
for like 3 rounds.
Taporia.
Was it? And then Josh
Yeah.
Evans the one who knocked him really, who put him out like that real bad.
Yeah.
Ooh, who you got from Holloway and
Gaethje and Holloway?
yeah.
Ooh. I honestly don't know. I honestly do not know who's going to win that fight. But I do think that people are underestimating Max Holloway. I think that this is going to be a more difficult fight for Gaethje than people think. I think people are expecting Gaethje to go in there and just run right through Holloway, and I don't think that's going to happen because Holloway, first of all, has a chin, never been knocked out, and he has insane speed with his hands. So I think that it might be difficult, even though there is obviously, Max Holloway's a 145er, Justin Gaethje's a big 155er, so there's that factor, but I think that the speed advantage of Holloway might be able to compensate for that in a way if he can avoid getting his legs chopped off by Justin Gaethje.
I think Justin Gaethje's this version of him is the best version that there's ever been. He's patient. He's explosive. He has a game plan that he sticks to. He throws nasty leg kicks. He throws nasty punches. I think if there was ever somebody to beat Islam, this is the Gaethje to do it. And I think that Holloway is going to get. I think it's going. I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think he's going to get finished. I don't think it's going to be what he did to the guy from Missouri, Connor's opponent. I don't think that I can't think of his name. It's twice now. I forgot his name. Connor's next opponent was supposed to be
Chandler.
Michael Chandler. I don't think Gaethje's going to do that to Max Holloway.
No.
But I don't think this is going to be the most competitive fight. Gaethje is so good now and so explosive and so, his game plan is so great and he sticks to it that I do think that it's going to be 3 rounds to none.
Yeah, it's going to be a 5-round fight.
Oh,
Yeah.
It might be stopped in. It might not go the distance. That's a difficult person. And I think Max Holloway is what the Diaz's wish they were, even though I'm the biggest fan of the Diaz.
Yeah.
The volume punching, the boxing that he has is so spectacular. Man, but those leg kicks and the power punches of Justin is just so, man. He knocked out Dustin Poirier.
That's insane. Yeah. That is insane that he did that. His striking has gotten so much better.
Yes, his striking all
Everything.
the way around. Yes, where he's not just going in there swinging to end the fight. He's going in there with a game plan that he's sticking to. And if we're doing MMA math, Max Holloway did lose to Dustin Poirier pretty handedly too. So
yeah. That was his debut. Was against Dustin Poirier in the UFC. I think that was when he got submitted. Maybe they fought a couple times.
No, maybe they fought twice because they recently
Holloway
just
fought him. I think they have fought twice. Holloway fought him once in his debut, and got submitted. I think it might have been a Darce choke. I could be wrong. I could be thinking of something else, but I'm pretty sure that was Max Holloway's UFC debut. I think he was like 18 at the time. But Frankie I could be
Edgar. Wrong. Man, he's been in the UFC a really long time.
His resume is insane. The names that he's fought are just he's fought everyone. Even a lot of the 55ers.
He fought Pettis and stopped Pettis.
Yeah.
He fought Jeremy Stevens, Oliveira,
It's
Cub
insane.
Swanson. Yeah, he's fought everybody. Yeah. Man,
I wonder what's going to happen after this fight, if he's going to stay at 155 or if he's ever going to go back down to 145. I don't know.
He's been 2013. He fought. Garcia was the one with the crazy submission. He fought Justin Lawrence, who's from St. Louis too. That's all the way back in 2012.
Oh wow. Yeah,
I
that's
think that was
12
on the
years ago.
show.
Wow.
I think that was on the show that they fought. He fought Poirier. Yeah, round 1 he got subbed all the way back in 2012. That is a crazy long time ago.
That's an insane career that he's had. And still never
Conor
been knocked
McGregor.
out. That's crazy.
Yeah, he's fought the who's who of that division, 145 and 155. The fact that he stopped Pettis in round 3 is amazing.
I know.
Yeah, what an exceptional fighter. I wish they wouldn't have matched this fight. I wish they'd have got somebody else, to be honest with you. I think that Justin Gaethje is a man on a mission, and we'll see if he convincingly wins this, I think he gets Islam next, right? No?
I agree. Unless, here's the caveat, because there is another big lightweight fight on that card. Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. And both of them have a strong case for a rematch, because both of them have fought Islam before. But both of them have a strong case for a rematch with Islam. I think Arman has the stronger case. So I think if Arman wins, then I think that Islam versus Arman is the fight to make, in my opinion, because Arman was the first guy to ever take Islam down, and he gave him a tough fight. I mean, that fight went to decision, and I believe Arman took it on short notice, if I'm not mistaken.
What's his name?
Arman Tsarukyan. So he's
What's
fighting.
His name?
He's fighting Charles Oliveira.
There's no appeal to that.
I know.
300 is a he gets his
But
moment.
if he beats Charles Oliveira, there's definitely an appeal to it, I would say.
And especially at 300,
yeah.
if he does it in style,
yeah,
it's going to have to be in spectacular style.
I think he's going to have to get a finish, most likely, or an extremely dominant win, like extremely dominant
unless
decision
you're a
win.
diehard UFC fan, though, you don't know who that guy is.
No,
you don't,
yeah, most people don't.
You're not paying $100 or $80, $70, whatever the pay per view is, to watch him headline that. I mean, maybe you are if you're an Islam fan, but that's not who. Like the Gaethje fight, that's the sexy.
That's
name.
An easier sell. Yeah. So I think it'll depend on multiple factors. It'll depend on the performance of each of those guys, because I think that's really what's going on there. I think they're competing for that title shot is what they're all doing. All those 4 guys are competing for that one title shot, and which is crazy that they're doing it all on the same card. It's insane, because you could argue for all of them. You know, if either one of those guys wins, you could argue a title shot for them. I think that it's going to depend on when Islam is going to fight again. It's going to depend on how they win. What if one of them gets injured? What if Justin Gaethje wins, but he tears his ACL or something? You know, something crazy happens. So it's like there's all sorts of factors that could play into it. And then also the negotiation and, you know, how much money they're going to want to get paid and all that goes into it, which, you know, that's all for Dana to figure out. And then where they're going to have the next title fight. Is it going to be the headliner or is it going to be the co-main event? All those things are going to play into it. So it's like very interesting. Very, very
I think Islam is too big to be the co-main.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think he could co-main. He could co-main a John Jones pay-per-view or something big like that, I think. But
everybody
anything else.
John Jones. Everybody's co-maining to John Jones.
Exactly, yeah.
But I think Islam he's such a high, it's who he's related to.
He's so dominant.
Yeah, and who he's related to more than I think that rub, because you went from a Khabib fan to an Islam fan right away. Like you seen the link was easily there, and he is dominant too. Even though I think he did lose to Volkanovski and won, but then he came back and he head kick knocked out.
Right.
That's insane. Like who would have guessed that? Yeah,
and ran through Oliveira and Dariush. So I mean, that was crazy.
When him and Gaethje fought too, he kind of, even though he almost hit the one where he almost got subbed or got caught, whatever it was, I forget what it was in. Maybe that was Dustin Poirier I'm thinking of. But he kind of ran through Gaethje too. But Gaethje mentally, you ever seen a fighter, they take a swing and they miss and they almost fall over? Mm-hmm. I can tell you from experience, that is nerves. That is nerves. Because when you're in your position and you swing, even if you miss, you don't miss like where you're just throwing everything into it to fall over. I think to me, maybe I'm dreaming, I'm hoping, I'm wishing. That's the fight I want to see. I want to see Justin Gaethje versus Islam for the belt. I want to see
I
him
do think that's the
beat
best
Max.
matchup.
Yeah, it's easy as sell too.
Yes.
Whether it's that's what we get or not. A lot of people like Charles Oliveira too.
He's got a huge
I just
fan
remember
base. Well, that's the
I
other
think
thing
he's
too, is like internationally, a lot of these guys have a bigger fan base than they do in America.
Charles Oliveira is definitely one of them. I want to say that he put up I forget what fighter was recently. He put up the number of followers that they had on Instagram or whatever it was, and he had
Yeah,
like a
he's up
million
there.
more followers. Yeah, I want to say it was like 6 million followers or something like that. He's one of the
He's
top
up there.
guys in the whole UFC internationally. So the
Yeah.
world loves him. I'm just old, so I remember him getting like he got a calf crank or something like that against somebody way back in the day. He kind of quit. So you ever notice when you see a fighter the very first time and they do something that just sticks with you? So no matter how
Yes.
far they've come from that moment or how better they've got or evolved they got, you're still stuck on that.
Mm-hmm.
That's me and Charles Oliveira. No
Yeah.
matter how great he gets, I can't. I always remember that I know it's dumb.
No, I get what you're saying. I kind of had the same thing because it's been interesting to see the big shift in his career, how he kind of went from, Charles Oliveira, you almost thought of in a similar way that you do to like Dustin Poirier now, at that point in his career. I mean, he was younger, obviously, but it was kind of like, okay, he's insanely good, but not the most consistent all the time, or depends on the opponent, depends on what's going on. Is he still in the top of the heap at lightweight? That was kind of, I feel like, where I was at with Oliveira before he started to kind of really gain momentum again. But I mean, it just shows, how motivated he really is. And maybe that's what he needed. Maybe he needed to have kind of a skid in his career to get that hunger, to get that back. But yeah, it is kind of crazy looking at his earlier career and then looking at him now.
Like I've seen him kind of. I'm gonna say quit, but I've seen him kind of quit. So
Yeah. You could, you could
just
kind of argue that in the Max Holloway fight. I mean, it was apparently an esophagus injury or something like that, but a lot of people thought that he was kind of just giving up. That's what a lot of people thought.
and those are people that it's easy to the fat guy sitting in his basement.
Yeah.
It's easy to say. It's easy to say that, but
Yeah.
that's not what people want as a champion. I mean,
Right.
That's
Yeah,
why
exactly.
That's why Diaz is so loved. Him and Diaz, they got into a little Twitter war or whatever the hell it was, where he's like, you can't compare him to me because I got this, and this. I'm a 2-time champ. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, more people like Diaz than they do DC, and it's because DC is like the definition of a fighter. And I'm not saying DC ever quit because he didn't. That just there's a difference in what people want and like as their champion. And DC is just not that guy. Charles Oliveira, some people love that guy. Other people are going to always remember you quit.
Right.
No matter how skilled you are. It may not be fair because Chael Sonnen, I believe Chael Sonnen a while ago said that when people tell you that quitting is not an option, they are wrong. It is the most readily available option to you.
It's the easiest
and there's
option.
different ways to do it. You can give them an arm. You can give them your neck. You can bid yourself out of, I don't want to fight the guy, so you ask for too much money. There's a number of ways that people quit without quitting, And it's not fair to judge him for that or anything like that. But I just did.
That's funny. Well, I'm curious what your thoughts are. So getting back to NFA before we wrap up here, I'm curious what your thoughts are on Dakota Bush. So gets a huge win over Jeremiah Scott, main event, wins the belt in NFA, which is, gosh, what a great moment that was to see him with that belt. And just kind of, you could tell, like, man, that must have been a lot of work that went into that. Just the way that he kind of looked after after they put the belt around him. It was just kind of, I felt like that probably tasted pretty sweet to him. But I feel like I don't know what will be next for him, because I don't know how difficult it is to get back into the UFC right now. I mean, I think it's probably a better time to get back into the UFC than it ever has been. What do you think would possibly be next for Dakota, or do you even really have any thoughts on it?
I think Dakota should be signed to the UFC immediately. I'm a huge fan of the person that Dakota is. I've
Yeah, I agree.
been in the same room, the training room with him. I've talked to him a bunch of times. I think he's such a great human being. He's
Yes.
genuine. He's authentic. I also believe that he's one of the 30 best 155ers in the world. I do believe that.
I do too.
I think the UFC should sign him. I think he should be back in the UFC. I think he's had 4 wins since the UFC. Since he's
12-4 now, right?
His first fight in the UFC was like a 30-pound weight cut on last minute notice,
God.
and he went to a decision. His second fight, he got caught with a kidney or liver kick.
Yeah.
And he's the only time he's ever been stopped. Mm-hmm. It happens. So you gave him 2 shots, and that's all you gave him. I think that he is.
Most people usually get 3 fights before they get cut in the UFC?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think he's proven that he's one of the better 155ers in the world. It's so hard to get fights and matchups for him outside of the UFC.
That's the thing, yeah.
Shut us all up, Dana, and give him another shot. I'll stop tweeting you. I'll stop inboxing you. Just shut us all up and give him another shot. That's all we want. I am a fanboy of the guy. Like, I'm not going to lie about that. But I've watched his growth, his maturation. He's an exceptional human being, and he's an exceptional fighter. He just 100% deserves to be back in the UFC. He's down there training ATT with Grant Dawson and all those the coaches down there, and he's just getting better and better. And at 31 years old, when you've been in the game this long, and to still be growing and getting better, it
agree.
Speaks for itself.
I think this is the perfect time for him to go back to the UFC. And I think that I don't think that he needed a finish necessarily to earn that, because he's already, like you said, now he's on a 4-fight or 5-fight win streak? 4-fight win streak?
4.
Okay, he's 12-4. So what else do you want? I know there are going to be people that are against it because of, the fight went to decision, and, they're, I guess. But here's the thing about that, and I'm going to go on a little soapbox here. To be able to do what Dakota did requires an insane amount of skill. To be able to, and this probably comes from training with Grant Dawson, is because that's something that Grant Dawson is really good at too, is holding people on the ground and keeping them there. Instead of where you see a lot of these fights where maybe to the casual fan or to the untrained eye is more fun to watch somebody get taken down a bunch of times. It's way more impressive when they can keep them there. And that's what Dakota did extremely well with an opponent who was very active from the bottom and presented a lot of problems for him. He was able to stay in control and did a lot of damage on top. Now, I know Dakota, I think, he might have eaten a couple elbows from the bottom from Jeremiah. But for the most part, it looked like to me that Dakota was doing quite a bit more damage and significant more control time. And it felt to me that either Dakota's just got unreal pressure and his ability to hold somebody down is just insanely good, or, his opponent kind of accepted the position a little bit, which that also could be what happened, or it could be a little bit of both. So I think that for Dakota to put on a performance like that honestly just shows that he is UFC caliber, and I don't see anybody. Yeah, maybe there are guys out there that could beat him on the right day at the right time, but I just don't see him really needing to compete on a regional level or a local level anymore. I think he belongs, in the upper echelon of the competition in MMA.
It's a travesty that if he's not back in the UFC, and I can tell you from watching Jeremiah's fights, that dude did not just give in and let him do that.
Right.
Dakota technically pushed him up, went through the process, fought off tried to move his hips. He stuck him against the cage, buried him against there. Every time he went to throw something up, he angled the correct way. He did everything he was supposed to technically to make the fight stay where it was supposed to, and he still was making damage and stuff. Jeremiah's skill is a fantastic,
very good fighter.
Yes. So to do what you did to him, and he's one of the better fighters I've watched from his back.
Yes.
And to not have any offense really, and just try and move and not get beat up, it was a great performance. I don't know what else that you want from the guy. I mean,
I
obviously
know.
everybody wants knockouts and stuff like that, but you do what you do to win fights. That's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is that he did damage, you know? I mean, maybe it wasn't the
Yes.
flashiest of damage you can do, but his stand up in the first round I thought looked exceptional. And even I think he hit him with a head kick like at the last minute or something like
Yep.
that too.
Yep.
And he went
Little
for a
slap on the
flying
side of the
knee.
face with that foot.
Yeah.
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 Uh,
So,
to
I
have
don't
the
know.
offense that people were looking for, it puts himself in a very bad position to get subbed
Yes.
or get elbowed. And if you've watched Jeremiah's fights, he's great at that. So I
Mhm.
thought Dakota did an exceptional job doing what he needed to do to get a dominant
I
win.
agree. I agree. I think he absolutely dominated. There was not a second in the fight that I thought he was going to lose. And I thought that he showed not only his wrestling skills, but his fight IQ also. And I feel like that's something that, you know, you'll hear people say this about fighters all the time. Like, why does this guy never use his wrestling? Why does he never use his wrestling? And then when they use the wrestling, they're like, why don't they ever use their striking? It's like, well, what do you want him to do? Like, either way, people are going to complain no matter what. So it's like,
I,
maybe the fighter should just do whatever they got to do to win the fight. I mean,
you're not fighting. The guy's not letting you do it. He's not just saying, "Hey, I'm gonna lay over here in the corner. Come
yeah.
grab me." He's not trying to be put in that position. Uh,
Right.
so never apologize for a win, and
No.
it is on your opponent's job to make you get off of him, like to scramble
Exactly.
to get up. And when he's not able to do that, it's just a testament to your skill set, your training, your game planning, and you imposed your will on him. Kudos to Dakota, man.
Oh, yeah.
What a tough fight. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember because when he was in his post-fight interview, he said he gave his performance a D minus. I disagree, Dakota. I don't think you. I think you need to watch it again. I think he needs to watch it again and then grade it, give it another score. I think
That's why he is where he is, though, too. Because
that's
he
the
is hard on
thing.
himself.
Yeah, exactly. He's so unsatisfied in the best way possible. I think.
And I want to give a shout out to Pat, too, Pat Smith. Because
Oh yeah.
Pat's always going to give that, like, be a straight shooter and tell him his honest opinion, what he thinks. Pat is one of the most underrated coaches in all of MMA, in the world. And I don't mean that tongue in cheek. I mean that literally 100%. Fighting's not the most complex thing in the world, but to get guys to do the things they need to do is. And Pat
Yes.
has done a fantastic. That little bitty ass town all the way out there. It's got like 3,000
Yeah,
people.
Cuba.
Yeah, and badasses and
Insane.
a badass coach, man. Kudos to Pat Smith too, man.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing, too, that is important to note, that a great coach doesn't necessarily mean you have 15 UFC fighters underneath you. You could have one UFC fighter underneath you, and you could be one of the top 5 coaches in the world. So I think that what he's doing, I mean, it's obviously he's doing something right to produce 2 UFC vets who have performed on a very, very high level, even still in Dakota's career, performing on a high level. So I think that, and then I think didn't Andrew Sanchez train there too at one point, or does he still train there?
Yes.
Yeah, so 3.
100%.
Yeah, that's
100%.
insane for St. Louis. Yeah, that's a testament to how good of a coach he is, especially in such a small town where it's not like people are going to be like moving all their whole life to Cuba
Right.
to train,
But
but
he's
maybe
a
they
straight
should.
shooter, and he knows the sport. He's such an honest person, and he
Yeah.
knows the sport. So him and what they got going on down there, man, and what he did do, great job, man.
It's exciting. It's exciting. What are you most excited for before we go? What are you most excited for in St. Louis combat sports? And I mean, obviously, you're doing great things for the sport. You're doing interviews, giving fighters exposure, giving them platform, which is super, super important, and something that I feel like we're really starting to do a lot more in St. Louis, which I'm happy to see. But what are you most excited for this year in St. Louis combat sports, would you say?
I'm just gonna sound corny. I'm excited for the growth that
Yes.
St. Louis as a whole seems to be going forward. There's
Yes.
you, there's me, There's I forget it, man. I'm so bad with names. There's somebody else. Oh shit. There's somebody else out there who's doing interviews, and there's a buzz to St. Louis
Yeah.
MMA right now that there hasn't been a long time from the gyms training with each other, just the collaboration. That's what I'm excited. I'm excited for St. Louis MMA, St. Louis Combat Sports. That's the thing I'm most excited about.
I agree. I 100% agree. And I think that it's the perfect storm. You know, we've kind of got a lot more media going on now, which is great. We've got the fighters even kind of doing their own thing with their own media and in like building their social media platforms and stuff like that. And then we've got, it feels like people are having fun. And I think that is really cool. Obviously, when you're getting in the ring and you're getting beat up, that's not fun. But the other things, you know, the marketing themselves, training, and having that camaraderie in the gym, it feels like there's just a different vibe in the air, and I really like it.
There's a buzz. There's a buzz in for sure that I don't think we've ever had like this as we do now, and I'm so happy for that. Brad and Marlene, I can't. Kudos to you guys for the show that you put on, the time and effort and the work and the money that you put into doing to do what you do. Because I've seen a little bit of the backside of it. You guys are insane, for real. You're psychos because it can't be that much fun. You gotta love what you do to continue to do it. So thank to the NFA and their whole team, Knuckle Up Promotions, doing their thing in the Midwest, the growth they've had, the fights that they're putting on, going to the Lake of the Ozarks. Ricky Davis, man, shout out to him. All these gyms, these people, man. St. Louis is this area is in a great spot right now, and I'm thankful and happy for that.
I agree. I'm very excited. I'm excited for the UFC to come here. I'm excited for, more NFA events. I'm super excited for the next one. I'm excited to check out some other local promotions too. I'm excited for everything. I mean, we got Muay Thai and kickboxing too going on later this month, so it's a lot going on.
Oh, the stand-up fight series. Chad Mueller. I'm sorry, so sorry, Chad. What he's building and helping the combat sport and helping MMA through the stand-up fight series, the production, the promotion, the work that he's put in to his promotion as well is just phenomenal. St. Louis has a huge I'm so sorry, Chad. Kudos for real. Like, he's doing a great thing in St. Louis and like in the area. No doubt. Oh, his boy Trey, his fighter Trey. That
Trey
guy's
Lewis?
gonna make that next. Yes, gonna make that next huge leap. That that's a scary man right there too.
Terrifying.
Yes.
And Ty Prackett, he's very young and he's just getting started in his amateur career, but man, he's got some skills. That kid is crazy.
It's a great time to be alive in St. Louis combat, baby.
Oh my God, yeah. It's gonna be crazy because imagine forget MMA for a second. Let's look at Muay Thai kickboxing. Imagine some of these fighters. We could see them in one championship within the next year or two. I mean,
yeah. Trey,
it's crazy.
Quickly. Drew Gigax, all them Trey Lewis, Trey
Crawford. Yeah. There's a ton of them now.
I love Trey. I love Crawford, man. Him and I go way back too. I love talking shit to him. He loves talking shit to me. To see his growth, the Church of Jamie.
Oh my God, I know.
Yes, man, it's a great time.
I always
to be alive
I call that gym like the doghouse. That to me, that's what I call it because it's just like a bunch of dogs.
That's a perfect name for it, man. That is too. They got a great thing going on out there, man. And Crawford's growth and maturation over the last 2 years, being at that gym and the work that they put in, his physique looks different. His fighting looks different. Man, wow. Yeah. They got a lot of dogs out there. I forget his name now. Who's the zombie that they got?
Patrick?
Oh, huh?
Patrick Vega?
Yes. He's man.
I can't wait to see him fight again. Man.
Yeah. St. Louis Combat Sports, baby. It's the place to
be. It's amazing. And you know what's funny about Patrick is I actually knew him before I was ever involved because I didn't really get involved in the local scene until a few years ago. And even then it was like I'd go to a fight now and then. Now I'm much more active in it. Which is really awesome. But I was into UFC before I ever got into the local scene. But I knew Patrick because we worked together at this studio way back. I was like 18, like right out of high school. So he probably wasn't much older than me. If maybe he's the same age as me, I don't even know how old he is. But but I remember him. He was always super nice. I didn't know him super well, but I knew he was a nice guy and he was always fun to talk to. And then I remember I went to the Shamrock show where he fought Matthew Boyer. And I saw him and I was like, wait a minute. I was like, that is the guy I used to work with literally like 8 years ago or whatever it was. And I was like, wait a second. So I went up to talk to him afterwards and he won that fight. That was I think the liver shot knockout. But I went up to him and I was like, when did you start fighting, dude? I was like, I didn't even know you fought. And he told me that, like, he really just was doing boxing training. Like, he didn't even really have any kickboxing experience in that fight. And the guy that he fought is literally, you know, a Taekwondo instructor and has been doing, you know, martial arts for a long time. So I'm like, what? Like, it was honestly kind of inspiring because
He's a fighter.
Yes, exactly.
He's a fight. Like that guy's that kid's a fighter, man.
He is. He's got it in his soul.
Yes, he reminds me a little bit of a Diaz. Like he eats punches, man. He gets it just as well as he gets it. Huge fan of his, no doubt. Yes. I'm a huge fan of the church. Man, there's so many things to be excited about if you're into combat sports in this area. Oh, by the way, kudos to you. Great job. Your UFC 300. That's dope.
Yeah.
That's congratulations. That's awesome. What you got going on, what you're doing, your editing work, your video editing work, fantastic. Kudos. You've done a great job. It's
I appreciate it.
You're another thing to be excited about in St. Louis, the Midwest. I keep saying St. Louis because I'm from the area, but the Midwest MMA. Kudos to you too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been really cool to be a part of. And when I first got involved with it, I didn't really know where it would go, you know, because and really how it started was Chad Mueller asked me to cover the kickboxing fights, not the last stand-up event, but the one before that. I think it was almost a year ago now. That was the second episode of my MMA show that I did, where I do like the breakdowns and stuff. So and that's how it started with the local scene. I really. That's how I kind of got involved. And I, after that, I think was when, I'm trying to think of how it all worked out. I covered a couple Shamrock shows after that. And then I started to get involved with like other organizations. 'Cause really, you know, when I started covering local MMA, it was more to kind of give the fighters a platform and give the fighters an opportunity more so than the promotion. No offense to the promoters. Like, love you guys. Obviously, you guys work your butts off. But my motivation is really to kind of give the fighters a platform and to give them, to kind of highlight what they're doing out there, you know, because they work so hard. And, you know, they might have a performance where they do something really interesting or they have just something unique about it, and I like to highlight that. I like to be like, hey, this is what they did, you know, because I think that is really what will help people appreciate the sport more that aren't necessarily maybe into it as much. Like maybe they like to watch the fights, but they don't really know what's going on. You know, I feel like that's really what will help them, and that's why I love doing the analyst work more than anything, because I think that, well, obviously the interviews are super important for the fighter's brand, and I think that doing those is really, really going to do a lot of great things for the local scene, and that's why I'm glad to see more people like you doing interviews, because obviously I can't interview everybody. So like I need more people to do interviews because it's awesome, and I think it gives the fighters, you know, an opportunity to tell their story. And like Ray Hayes, you know, he told me that he works 6 days a week and he owns an apartment building and he trains as a professional fighter. I'm like, you're insane, dude. You're insane.
The sacrifice, sacrifice they put in. The sacrifice the fighters,
exactly.
You lose friendships, you lose relationships, jobs. Like it's a lot that goes into being a fighter, a combat sport fighter, not just MMA, but kickboxing, Muay Thai,
anything.
Yeah,
Even
it's a lot.
jujitsu too. I mean, because you're thinking about that, they're tearing their ACL, they're breaking bones. I mean,
To be good at it, you're
jujitsu's no
sacrificing
joke
your
either.
life for it. It's always on your
Yes.
mind. You're always thinking about it. Kudos to those men and women for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, they put a lot into it, and that's why, yeah, like I was saying, that's why I love doing the analyst work. And even though maybe it's definitely the most time consuming out of all of it, to do that, but I think it's important, and I think it needs to be done. And I hope that I can continue to do what I'm doing now, and still be able to do it on a local level for as long as I possibly can, and balance all of it, because I do think that it's really important, and I think it's something that we need to be able to put St. Louis on the map, and to be able to make St. Louis a hub for combat sports. Is obviously media is super important, but I think that you could do 10 interviews and get less results than you get from doing 1 or 2 interviews also. So I think it's the quality of work that matters too. And I think it's, having people interviewing fighters that actually care about the fighters is really important, because, I mean, look at some of these interviews you see, and some of these media days you see, where you can tell the person interviewing the fighter, like, they don't even watch a lot of the fights.
It's for a clickbait or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's for them. It's for their benefit. And I think that we're starting to see a shift, and I think it's a good thing, where there are more journalists now out there that do care about the fighters and want to make it more about them than their number of views they get, or how many people click on their article and stuff like that. Because I've never really cared about that. I've never really cared about how many views my interview gets, or I never really cared about how many clicks, or how, let me take the most viral moment from this clip. Like, it would be so easy. I could take these little viral clips out of these interviews, and probably they would get tons of views and cause all kinds of drama. But I would rather take the parts of it where the fighter's telling their story, and kind of create, like, almost like a little documentary for them in a way. That's kind of what I like to do.
When I do a podcast at the house and have a guest come over, I edit out anything that is remotely clickbaitish type, because it's just about I want to make them look the best light they can possibly be, and to have them shine the best way without any drama or stuff like that.
Yeah,
that does short term. I only one time did I ever even look at the views, and that was because of Dawson. When he shared it, he inboxed me and said something about how many views it had, and said,
really?
Let's try and let's keep this going. He's 20 years old, or
that's
what,
funny.
21 years. Yeah, so no shot at him or anything like that. But it was the first time that I'd ever even thought about, like, how many views it got and stuff. I do this because I enjoy talking to fighters. I enjoy talking about fighting. I enjoy being around the sport. It's an awesome thing. It changed, like I said, it changed the whole trajectory of my life. And anytime I could help and get back to it, or help put it on a higher platform, or somebody else get noticed, I'll do. I love combat sport. I love MMA. Fighting's awesome.
It is. Yeah, talking to fighters is one of my favorite things to do. And that's why I like doing these interviews. And that's why a lot of my interviews are usually kind of long, because I like the conversation that we're having. I'm like, this is why. Because I don't want to do a 15-minute check all the boxes type of thing. I want to actually get to know who you are as a person, and understand, your purpose, and understand where, why this is so important to you. Where are you wanting to take this in the future? And, you can do all the little trash talk stuff. You can do and that's fine. Obviously that draws a lot of attention, and it is necessary in a lot of ways. But I think what really, if you think about all the biggest fighters in the world that have the most the biggest fan base, if you think about them, a lot of times it's not the trash talk that gets people involved with them. It's their story. It's who they are as a person. And, like, look at GSP is a perfect example of that. A lot of people admire GSP because of, his dedication to his craft, and because of, who he is as a person. He's a very respectful person and things like that. Like, I really don't think you have to be the smoothest talker. I really don't think you have to be the most, I don't know, loudmouth, whatever you want to call it. unless that's who you are as a person.
Yes, authenticity is the number one thing that endears people. If you talk shit, that's what you then do your thing. Do your thing. If you're a martial artist and you're respectful and you just go out and you prove it out there, do your thing, and that do you. That's all that's what's gonna get noticed. That's what's gonna get you through. Your ability to fight and you being true to who you are. Like Diaz and GSP are complete polar opposites, and people love them both. The same people love both of them, respect both of them, because they're authentic to who they really are. They're not putting on to put on. Like GSP's probably still whooping half of the top 10 in the UFC at 170 or 185 because he trains every day still. He still does the same stuff. That's what gets going to get your light's going to shine through is when you're authentic to who you are.
Exactly. I agree 100%. And that's why I think that, a lot of times you don't have to even look at Alex Pereira, for example. He really doesn't talk much at all. And I think that he doesn't need to. I think he's being able to create a huge persona for himself just on his facial expressions alone, which is amazing.
You beat me to it because he stares at you like this. He says so stoic. He says so much without saying anything.
Yes, he does. I love it. And
then he also performs too.
Yeah, he knocks people out. That's the other thing. Yeah. Well, Ray, he's not a big talker, but look at his performances and look at his charisma when he's in the octagon too. I mean, that speaks for itself. Mm-hmm.
They match up. He's got a lot of charisma.
Yes, he does.
I would tell people that try to emulate what he does, but you can't duplicate that. It comes out of who you are, whatever. He reminds me of a little bit of a Diaz with some showmanship, with more showmanship to him. He's a hard-nosed, straightforward guy, but then he's got this flair to him too.
Yes, that was really fun to watch. That was probably hard to really say what my favorite performance was because I'm still kind of processing everything. But that to me was the most standout performance of the night. Not only because of the performance during the fight, but the whole thing. Just the whole thing in itself was just great. I was like, this guy's awesome.
Yeah. The only thing that I'll say that was even close to that for I'm having another brain fart. The 185 title fight between Tavon and Corey.
Yeah.
Who would have guessed?
Is that the knee bar?
Yeah, who would have guessed knee bar from Tavon?
That's awesome.
Wow. That's growth. That's a testament to his training and his ability to continue to grow. Because he reminds me of Anthony Johnson. Like his stand up is nasty. Like he puts people to sleep like quickly. And this time he got a freaking knee bar. And he did it to perfection too. Like if you watch and go break that down, it was to perfection.
Oh my God. Well, and I remember when he was hitting pads in the back, I heard him throw a kick. And I was almost more entertained watching that than I was watching the fights.
Hey, that's a scary man for sure.
Yeah.
Now he's got jiu-jitsu
to that.
And now he's got jiu-jitsu to go with it. The sky is the limit.
Yeah. That was insane. Man, there were some good performances on that card. I'm excited to go back and watch. I've watched the pro fights back a couple times, but I'm excited to go back and watch the other ones too once they're out because there were some really good performances.
It was a great night of fights, that's for sure.
It was awesome. I can't wait for the next one.
Hey, was it May what? 4th? May something.
Is it?
Yeah, it's May something.
Oh, I didn't even know they had one already booked. Well,
right back at it.
That's exciting. I can't wait. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Very cool. Well,
I'm gonna have another fly jacket for that night too.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate everything you're doing, man. I mean, you're doing interviews and you're doing the work you're doing with NFA is really cool too. I really like the is that like the pre-show basically that you guys do?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's really cool. Not a lot of local shows have that.
I thank you to them for allowing me the opportunity. I enjoy it. I had a lot of fun, especially this last time. I thought the last one was a lot better. It's more
Yeah.
real, it's more raw. Like hollering at people, grabbing them, just walking by.
Yeah, that was
Obviously,
awesome.
obviously, we can have a lot of growth to do and to get better at it. But I had a lot of fun doing it, and you can't take that
Yes.
from me.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, the work that you're doing for St. Louis is great, and I think it's really, really important for the growth of combat sports here. And we need you. We need you. We really do, because there's not a lot of people doing interviews here, like I said.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
Well,
ditto to
anytime you need
you.
anything too, let me know.
Right on. Hey, good luck at UFC 300.
Thank you.
Dude, and enjoy it. That's what, the only thing that advice I want to give to you. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy all of
Yes.
it because, wow,
That's a once in a lifetime kind of thing.
without a doubt. And you deserve it. Way to go.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It feels like it hasn't been very long, but it also feels like it's been a long time. Just because of the hours I've put in, I'm like, yeah, it feels like a long time coming.
I know the amount of time it goes into to preparing to do what you do. So
Yeah.
well deserved.
Thank you.
Good job.
I appreciate it. Well, it's been great talking to you, man. I'm
Ditto.
sure we'll have to collab again in the future, and with us being basically, the face of St. Louis MMA media. I mean, that's pretty cool. I think that we'll have some fun with that, and maybe we'll get to do like something really cool with like a group of fighters or something like that at some point, or who knows? I mean, we could come up with all sorts of cool ideas. I think it'd be really cool.
Hey, no doubt we will, man. Thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it. I enjoyed the time talking with you about MMA, combat sports in general.
Absolutely. All right. You have a good night. I appreciate you.
You as well. Thank you.